Issues of sexual harassment have destroyed and affected people with big names in the arts industry. Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, Amaititi, Gonyet, and the list goes on and on. It has become a norm in this new world, be it in the workplaces, schools, sports, politics, arts, and anywhere where humanity converges. It is a situation whereby one individual takes advantage of his or her position to sexually manipulate the other sex or the other partner, and the setup is usually in favor of the one initiating the move. The film industry in Zimbabwe has seen a notable growth in terms of quality over the past decade. This has not translated into monetary value as the sector continues to experience financial difficulties. This has created a dire situation in which young women in the industry are exposed to all manner of abuse. This has also seen a rise in male filmmakers with a sense of entitlement. They believe everything they give to a woman, be it a role in a film, must be paid back in kind.
Starangu tunoitwawo Stella January. Ndiri actress, mutambi wemutambo.
Starangu tunoitwa Felicitas Tezola. Ndiri amai vevana vatatu. Vasikana vairi, mukomana mumwe chete. Uye ndaambuya vane vasukuru vavo 5. Ndiri mufilm industry. Yandakatanga ndingati ndakatangira kuchikoro kubva zvazongoendererawo mberi kusvikira ndazonyatsopinda mazviri muna 1988.
My name is Caroline Chiroza with the stage name Keiichi. I'm a musician, a live stage performer. I'm also an actress, a songwriter.
My name is Fori Revai. I'm a program officer with Zimbabwe Women Lawyers Association.
I am Manuel Matsinye. I'm a creative writer, producer, director.
My name is Rose Chirimo, and I'm 49 years old. I'm an artist, I'm a mother, and I'm learning to be a businesswoman.
The issue of sexual harassment has been a blockade to other people with interest in acting as they fear to become victims. These stories have been in circulation for years, but very few women have reported their cases to the police or pursued them to their legal conclusion. Many women would rather just cry themselves to sleep or complain in the shadows. Some have the mindset that going to court is a long and costly process for them to accrue justice. Some have just folded their arms and concluded that it's a man's world. For these reasons, the producer of this project has taken up an initiative to come up with a documentary, Proximity to the Lens, the Dark Side of 3D Cinema. The documentary seeks to give a platform to hear the stories happening in the industry and engage organizations that help to resolve the matter. There is need to define sexual harassment and make it understood by the directors, cast, and crew.
Sexual harassment sekuinzwisisa kwandinoita ini kushungurudzwa kwemwanasikana kana kwemunhukadzi pabonde asingade.
Maziviro andinoita kana kuti manzwisisiro wandozviita inini. Sexual harassment kumbunyikidzwa kwemunhukadzi kana kuti munhurume futi panzvimbo pavanenge vari kana kuti pabasa pavanenge vachiita sei pavanenge vachishandira.
What I understand about sexual harassment is when you're forced into something that you don't want or something that you did it agree of, or when someone is attracted to you, but you don't feel the same way back to them, and then they force way into you.
Sexual harassment basically is a situation where a male or a female is subjected to, I could say in a way, subjected to being maybe touched in a way which they may not have approved of, in a way which is sexually suggestive. It could be words spoken that are sexually suggestive. Also, it could be gestures with a sexual connotation or of a sexual nature. That's what I think sexual harassment means. So it doesn't only apply to females, because people have this misconception that sexual harassment appeals to the girl child. No, males can also be sexually harassed. So in a nutshell, that's what I think sexual harassment is.
Sexual harassment can be anything that can be provocative, any kind of conduct that can violate one's ethical standing, that can violate one's physical preferences, especially in a sexual way. Sexual harassment might not necessarily be physical. It might be harassment which comes in verbal form by means of somebody saying sexual language or provocative language or words which are considered, vulgar or that can have sexual connotations.
Sexual harassment is a bit complicated, but what I understand, what I would love to say about sexual harassment is that it's something that is forced upon me, something that can be done physically or verbally. And sexual harassment happens to both sexes. And it's something that's very disturbing, and it's actually becoming a disease, because I think culturally we are losing out. We are no longer valuing ourselves. And because of lack of valuing ourselves, it's leading to sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment is harassment that can be defined as violence with the use of explicit or implicit sexual overtones. So it can be direct or indirect. It is unwelcome in the sense that the victim or the survivor doesn't want it, but still it happens. So it's unwelcome. It also involves the use of obscene remarks. For example, it's coming as a compliment, but in the same way, there's that thin line between the compliment and the harassment. So usually it's very difficult to report such cases because it is generally accepted by our society, and it's just treated as, somebody's joking. It can happen within a professional setting, it can happen within the workspace, it can happen within even social situations. It can also happen. Sexual harassment, by its very nature, it causes people or organizations to be less productive because it is harmful, especially to the victims.
Zimbabwe film industry is a mixed bag with actors and actresses from all ages and beliefs. This has resulted in a disintegrated bloc whereby the young ignores advice from the old, as they view this as jealousy. There is an apparent cartelization of the film industry by some men to an extent that once one production house condemns a woman, they can also put word out there that ensures every door she knocks won't be opened. But what exactly is going on behind the camera on film sets?
Firstly, kekutanga ndingangoti inini ndakambosangana nezvakadaro. Tine production yataita. Yanga iri theatre production. the guy tadzoka kuperformance akandinga pamba kandinokera window zvikuma 11 manheru ndikavhura window ndichimuti kwakanaka here zvikanda uraramba mako ndikamuti kurumudza kubva ipapo nditi kurumudza kutobva zvako pawindow pangu ndisandashedzera ndobva abva then tomorrow morning ndibva tasangana kuperformance handakuvhunza nezvazvo ndakuti ndakangopretenda iziva hapana chaitika iye obva apretend ndobva ndadzokera kumba ndobva auya futi same time akadhakwa ndoda kurara newe ndikamuti kekutanga ndikuregerera kechipiri ndekuregerera ukazviita third time ndichakufumura. Then the next thing akaenda kuna director because iye na director vanga vaiwirirana stereki vanga vatsikanditsikawo zvezve so akaenda kuna director inini I'm an actress but I'm not a dancer. I can't dance anditi so akazoenda kuna director akati mutambo wedu uyu kuti ubudirire unoda dini unoda munhu anogona dini pakati why because aiziva kuti nini handigone dini saka ndinotofanira kutobviswa muproduction. Then director vakazviona zvichiita kuti izvi shopa ndoda dini but director vainyatsoziva performance yangu havana kuda kundibvisa muproduction but vakazotora mumwe munhu anokwanisa kuti aite dini iye hazvina kumuitira musha akaramba achingovhiringa kuti director vandiite sei vandibvisa but nokuda kuti director vaiziva performance yangu plus vanga vasika zvezvi kuitika havana kuda kundibvisa muproduction but panext production havana kuzonditora.
Mwanasikana uyu akanziwo aiva muridzi wechinhu kana kuti mutungamiriri wepanzvimbo weproduction iyoyo Tanga Wandida. Zvadaro ndakazviona ndamunhu mukuru ndakazviona kuti panapa panenge pari kushanda iyo inyaya yekuti Tanga Wandida. Semunhu mukuru kana kuti samai vakabereka ndine vana vasikana zvandibata ndakaona kuti chekutoita kudzidzisa mwana wangu musikana kuti zvauri kuita izvi uchaita maproduction mangani nhai mwanangu uchingonzi pano pauya kuda kuti uite Tanga Wandida ino production Tanga Wandida iwe uri mwana musikana uri mhandara uchazodawo kuwanikwa uchazova chii nekuti hausi kuziva kuti pauchawanikwa unengoita maproduction mangani uchatowanikwa wamvemve. Mwana uyu kana kuti nditi hazvina kumuitira zvakanaka here kana kuti nditi matauriro andakaita zvakamubata here kana kuti akafunga kuti ndakuda kutomutadzisa kuita basa handinzwisisi. Mwana akaenda kumunhu wacho anga ari muridzi weproduction akanomuudza kuti ndo zvandaitwa naamai ava vanditi zvoni iwewe ndo basa rako rekuti wese musikana auya pano uri kutotanga wamuti uri kutotanga watorana naye actually ndo matauriro akaita. Kubva ipapo nemukuru iyeye hatinazomboshanda tese yakabva yava production yekupedzesera handitopuwi basa nemukuru ivavo pamusaka pekuti ndakatsura mwana musikana iyeye.
At Legacies, we never experienced any sexual harassment report from directors or stand directors or producers or managers against the cast or even cast amongst themselves. We never experienced. And then with Marbles, we normally workshop our actors to understand issues to do with sexual harassment and what constitutes sexual harassment. Once again, I'm happy to say that we've never recorded a case of sexual harassment at Marbles, and we are happy to make sure that we maintain that. If it is happening without our knowledge, that's another thing, but we've never had a case where an actress in Marbles has come to us and reported that she's being harassed sexually, and we have no record of such a report at our camp in Marbles.
As an organization, we have not encountered a case. We have encountered cases. Of course, our sector is a very small sector. These are cases where people have come up. They've said, "I've experienced a situation. I've been harassed." We have not been able, though, out of those many, I think there have been 3 or so different cases. I know the actresses personally because some of them I've worked with them, and they are all members of our organization, Zimbabwe Arts and Culture Industry Association. So they bring their issues there, and when they bring the issues, they'll be saying, "Please take action. Please help us." we have had a stalemate or a checkmate where they have failed to give us the names of the perpetrators. And I think it has over the past months been a pattern, not month, over the past period of, over the past, I think, 3 or 4 years. It has turned into a pattern where the lady comes, says they've been abused, they've been sexually harassed. We ask them by who, they freeze. We ask them, disclose the name of the perpetrator, they freeze, and they subsequently fail to give her. So it's also, if we don't have the name or the names of the perpetrator or perpetrators, what we can do as an organization is very, very limited. So, yes, we've encountered, not a case, we've encountered cases of women, of female actresses who have been harassed sexually or who allege that they've been sexually harassed in film productions. But of all these 3 or 4 different female actresses, none of them has been bold enough to be able to tell us that which has happened to me was done by producer A or producer B. So I think we are having a sticking point where the ladies that know the perpetrators are failing to identify, to say that is a perpetrator, for reasons at the moment which are only known to those victims who are the ladies and actresses that have experienced sexual harassment. So that, I think, is the greatest challenge. They are crying. We ask, who has done this or who has done it to you? They say, I can't say. That's the most painful answer that I've been given by all the 4 ladies. I can't tell you the name. I can't give you the number. I can't show you the picture. So then we say, okay, with that information that you have given us, what should we do? Who should we sue? Who should we file a case against? Who should we prosecute?
I've witnessed these 2 or 3 cases, but if you go deeper with the cases, you will then find out that some of the harassments that are happening are actually done by people who are willing. Because some of the victims, at first they look like they're enjoying it until a certain time when something else would have happened, then they will start reporting it. So it's difficult now to differentiate whether this person was really abused or harassed or these people were enjoying each other. But it's happening.
It's like a producer and the director. Pane production iripo and it. Mwanasikana auya ku-audition, kuzo-auditiona for the role yaari kuda kuti ave anoperform. Opuwa role yoyo anditi. But paanozonzi uye kana ku-office kana kupi, anoudzwa unzi kuti uwane role yoyo tutanga tarara tese. Anotanga anzi bonde first kuti awane role.
What should an individual do to make sure they are armed and safe from predators in the arts industry?
I stepped back, but I'm a fighter. I love challenging. I remember I wasn't in agreement in all of that, but I didn't stop doing what I came there to do. I continued, though now the pressure was too much and I wasn't getting any favors. Even if I do right, it's just wrong. But I continued though, being a fighter. Then I realized nobody holds me. Nobody holds my gift. So I stepped back, because even if I step back, I still got me. I still got my gift. I still got what God has planted inside of me. So I stepped back and moved to other productions or moved to other things. Yeah.
Izvi tikazvinyarara kana kuti tikazvigamuchira, for example, ndaenda kuindustry ndaona production iri kuda maactors nemaactresses, inini ndobva ndangosvika kuye ndobva ndanzi kuti muwane basa tangai madai, inini ndozvigamuchira kana kuti ndozvinyarara, handichazvitauri. Tiri kuuraya industry yedu, chekutanga. Chechipiri, tiri kuzviipisa matinofamba tichizopuwa mazita kuti maactors kana kuti maactresses mahuri. Nemhaka yei nekuti ndaita izvi ndaonekwa ndichidai ndaonekwa ndichidai ndaonekwa ndichidai tiri kutozvipa kuti tipuwe mazita. Ndosaka industry yedu isiri kuremekedzwa nekuti isusu wacho hatisi kuda kuiremekedza. Tikasaita izvi tikasaharasana tichatotanga kuremekedzwa tigotanga kuonekwawo seindustry ine chekuita muudiriro yenyika yedu.
The most disappointing and sad chapter in dealing with this heartbreaking situation of sexual harassment is that there is a very blurred and thin line between sexual harassment and consent relationship. It's hard for someone to pursue justice after being a victim.
It is very difficult to report crimes of a sexual nature. The reason being, it's mostly your word against mine. These crimes, they normally do not happen like in an open space where everybody is watching. Though for sexual harassment, it can actually happen in a very open space where somebody can actually shout something in front of everyone. But most sexual crimes are very difficult because it has to do with your body, or it has to do with you, the person. So it's very difficult to go and report such a crime because it's a violation of the individual, and it's hard to make a report for a person who has been violated. And also because the society that we are living in, you can actually be judged. And nowadays, because of social media and so forth, somebody is a married woman, she's got relatives and all that, and she's a daughter of somebody, and she's a husband of somebody, and so on. So it's a challenge to say, okay, everyone will end up knowing, even at the rural areas, they'll end up knowing, okay, there's this thing that happened at work, and others will even start blaming the victim. Or some of it, actually, you think the perpetrator is a person of a very high standing in society, and you think, well, I don't stand a chance. So it's difficult to make the reports. So in most cases, it is very, very difficult for victims to report crimes of a sexual nature.
Vana vedu vasikana vamwe vacho vanokwanisa kuzvimiririra kuti no, mumwe anozoita ndingati give in kwete nokuti anenge achida, asi nokuti ari kufunga kuti ndiyo stepping stone yangu kuti ndivewo pamberi, ndivewo pamusoro, asingatozivi kuti ari kutoshandiswa, asingazivi kuti kutombonyikidzwa kwaari kuita, asingatozivi kuti kutoshungurudzwa kwaari kuita.
Looking at how these cases are rising, do the local filmmakers, actors and actresses understand what is sexual harassment and how they should deal with sexual harassment? Do they know who to approach when faced with such situation? And do they know what door to knock?
I do not think that the arts industry is getting enough information on sexual harassment. Why? Because it is not only peculiar to the arts industry, it's actually across the board. I think there is no much information out there about sexual harassment because it is normalized. There is also underreporting of the cases, and the reason why we've underreporting compared to the prevalence of the problem is because of this normalization of the crime, and it also continues to perpetrate a culture of normalization, like it is normal to have it in our society. So what I would say, especially looking at the arts industry, is that the artists themselves are very influential people in society. They actually form part of the socialization of our young ones. You hear even a 5-year-old talking about and passing all these comments and so on, because it's because artists themselves, if I'm talking about musicians, I know it is broad, but if I'm talking about musicians, for example, they are very influential, and what they say within a very short period of time after releasing something, it's all over. It's all over, and everyone is talking about it. So they are influential, and they can actually take the opportunity of their influence to actually influence people to have a positive attitude and to also shun sexual harassment and not to normalize it.
Ndinoona kunge isiri kuwana nemhaka yekuti hazvisi kutaurwa. saka vanogozodzidziswa chirudzii ivo vari kuzviitwa vachinyarara kana kuti vari kuzviitwa vachizvigamuchira. Nekuti pamwe pacho anobva angozvitora sekuti ndofunga ndozvinofanira kuitwa kuti ndiwane basa muindastry. Saka hapana kwaachataura, hapana waachabvunza kuti nhai mama kana kuti nhai mukoma ndozvandaitwa ndoita sei. Asi vakazvitaura, I think dzidziso vanogona kuiwana.
Our industry, when it comes to this issue, I would like to say yes, somehow information is coming, but it's not coming in the right way, the correct way it's supposed to be reaching to us. Because sometimes we're just hearing it as hearsay, or someone else says I'm being harassed after hearing it from someone else. So I think my industry has to be taught. They have to be learned in terms of this harassment. Because if I'm learned enough to understand what is harassment, then I'll be able to convince the next person and the whole generation.
Iri kunzwisiswa, but iri kudzvenyererwa. Nekuti kazhinji zviri kunyanyoitika kuvasikana vechidiki vachangopinda muindastry ndo vari kunyanyosangana nedambudziko iroro, ndo vari kunyanyoshungurudzwa zvakanyanya. Vari kushungurudzwa nevatinoti maproducers nemadirectors. Saka kuti munhu azobatsirika zviri kunetsa, nokuti vari pamusoro vacho ndo vari kushungurudza, ende ndivozve vanofanira kunge vachibatsira munhukadzi kana kuti mwanasikana. Saka pari kunetsa.
Zimbabwean film sets are very open. Very open. I've been on a number of film sets with my colleagues in the film industry. Cases of sexual harassment on sets, if there were any, I think there should have been really a serious case against one of the producers or directors. But what I think there's a misconception between people who fall in love and fall out of love, and then there are sour grapes. And then the aftermath that comes basically is the backlash of sexual harassment accusations. Until and unless the victims are willing to come forward and speak about the abusers, then I'll still say that our film sets are clean.
I will assure you there is no country under the sun that tells its victims to protect the perpetrators. Kuti unonzi munhu akakuabuse unomutaura kuti ndinomuziva zvangu asi handisi kumutaura. Makadhakwa here ayo ndinomuziva. Timutaura izve handikwanisi kumutaura. Don't protect the perpetrator. So we need resources to create a system in the sector where the vulnerable and those that are already in the sector that have experienced it, they can learn from it and help each other to avert and avoid the situation of the perpetration of sexual harassment in the film industry.
Yes, I think I have witnessed sexual harassment. I'm also a victim, though I don't want to get into details. I've experienced that, though I managed to overcome that. Yes, I have witnessed.
We minimize sexual harassment through workshopping. We normally hold workshops where we educate our actors and actresses what is sexual harassment, what constitutes sexual harassment, how they can go about it if such a scenario, a situation occurs. I've realized that these workshops do help our actors. And also, my actors are really blessed because we also, before you enter into Marbles, we run an acting class, which we also teach and re-emphasize issues to do with general discipline, conduct, and issues to do with sexual harassment, even social etiquette, and a lot of other things that we believe that actors can encounter during their professional careers.
Zimbabwe is a party to international instruments such as the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And this instrument actually states that state parties must take appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination in the field of employment, so that there is equality between men and women. You also note that even the Constitution Section 65 embodies one of the most fundamental human rights that talks about the right to fair labor practice and fair labor standards. You also note it talks about non-discrimination in Section 56. There's also the right to human dignity in Section 51. All that lays ground clearly for the formulation of a specific law on sexual harassment. Currently, we do have the Labour Act. It talks about sexual harassment in one specific chapter in the Labour Act. But there is no specific law on sexual harassment because it is rampant and it's happening and it's a social ill that we need to deal with. We need a specific law and we already have the ground set for such a law. So I encourage government to have a specific law on sexual harassment. I also encourage the ratification of the International Labour Organization Convention that talks about fair labour practices in the world of work. Ratification of that instrument would also go a long way in terms of dealing with sexual harassment. That instrument is actually a good instrument. It also talks about domestic violence and how it also affects the world of work. So it's a good instrument. We encourage ratification of that convention. And also what I can say is that awareness raising. I think we talked about the issue that it's not only the arts industry, but it's across the board. There's lack of knowledge. Even the definition, what exactly is sexual harassment, is an issue. So I think there's need for awareness campaigns to raise awareness around sexual harassment. We also encourage companies, organizations, institutions to have specific policies on sexual harassment so that we can deal with this vice.
Well, as a film producer myself, and as a director, I've heard, especially in Zimbabwe, that we are being accused of sexually harassing females or actresses. I can't say yes or say no, but what's alarming is the fact that the prevalence of it being said, or people being accused of having sexually harassed actresses. But what constitutes sexual harassment is what is disturbing. In most cases, you'd find that actresses claim that they've been sexually harassed, and then they're probably asked to name and shame the perpetrators of sexual harassment or the director who would have harassed them. They are unwilling to do that. So it's a bit disturbing that that is happening. If sexual harassment is happening in the film sector, would want the people affected, both actors and actresses, to come out in the open and speak about these sexual harassment acts, so that the perpetrators can be brought to book.
As much as it is important for us to take action and make sure that the abused actresses, the perpetrators, are brought to book, it is also important for us to get a balanced picture of the situation. And I've mentioned here that there are situations where actresses and producers fall in love and have a long-term relationship, sometimes 2 years, sometimes 3 years. And then when they break up, sometimes that breakup is a nasty breakup. It's a nasty fallout. And then the actress is bitter. And sometimes she contemplates going to the media and using the card of sexual harassment, saying, this producer has been harassing me for the past 2 years, for the past 3 years. That is wrong. That is unethical. And I was saying, Isuso is an organization. We are not a women empowerment group. We are not a women advocacy group. We are an arts entity that protects both male and female practitioners in the sector. Saka tikakubata iwe uri musikana kuti you are trying to victimize an innocent producer simply because your relationship, your long-term relationship, has been dissolved, we will help that producer to sue you, because that is not ethical, that is not good. Learn to separate your personal issues from your professional issues. So as much as we are going to make sure that we bring the perpetrators to book, tikabata vakadzi vanoita false allegations and false accusations, we will sue you.
Unfortunately, the potential victims to sexual harassment seems to enjoy and bask in such situations, and all they are worried about is being famous and appear on television. Some actresses shield the perpetrators so that they keep getting roles. Some remain silent in order to keep getting roles. It's been difficult for the producers of this documentary to have participants, as many fear to lose opportunities in future. We wait and hope to see sanity in the arts industry, as we want it to grow. It's a hustle. It's a sad reality. It's heartbreaking. How many are soldiering on in this struggling film industry? This is the dark side of third cinema. Proximity to the lens has resulted in abuse rather than fame.